Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, and it's always an exciting way to connect. And as we're learning how to use technology more and more, it's really being helpful for us to bring some of our ideas and thoughts forward, and we're really looking for input from the sector and from our memberships, our members in particularly. So ECEBC started off on this theory of change about 7 months ago, and it was really to help us as an organization to become part or understand our goals and our objectives moving us into the future. So tonight we're really seeking critical input into this. We're using this session as one of our last of our pressure testing processes, where we've held similar ones with a range of different key individuals and groups. So we did present this at our ECEBC AGM, and it will help guide the Board of Directors' strategic plan into the future. So we do know that we're on a journey, and during this process, we have heard many, many positive comments about this ambitious work. And we also heard two different approaches. So when you look at this, you might be able to think. So one was to scale back, and the other one was about the importance of envisioning a hopeful future. And this presentation thoughtfully chooses to present a full and bold vision because of this work. So Sean's already moved to the next slide, so that's great. So the overview of this project and why it was so important for us to move forward and to go through this process. So we have been working with ECEBC to develop impact and strategic clarity model, and this really has to help us design and examine what we've been doing, what we've done in our history, what we're doing now, and to develop that greater clarity on what we aim to achieve, how we're going to do that, and how we'll know it or measure it. How are we going to look at it? So you can see that there's a link there, and as Sean said, it's going to be recorded so we can have it up on our social media sites and our website at a later year. So last year during Focus on ECEBC Social Enterprise, which we started last year, we developed and identified a goal of how to expand and educate and engage other audience, particularly the general public. So this process is really helping us strengthen our inward and outward facing messaging about our work. And ECEBC, if you haven't heard of it, is a program of the J.W. McConnell Foundation. The program provides supports to nonprofit organizations like ours. So it's been a very intense process, particularly for the task force that was pulled together to do this, but definitely we feel it's worthwhile. You can go to the next slide, Sean. So as I mentioned, we started with ECEBC in the fall of 2016, and it was made up of ECEBC board and staff who worked with a coach, and her name was Lynn. So part of the history of ECEBC is that we have been in existence for 48 years, which is, we are the second longest standing organization in Canada after Ontario. And we know that our organization is key to the professionalization of the sector, and that's really important. It still remains so. So this process has helped and is helping us to look into the future with optimism, to really feel hopeful about what's possible from where we've come, where we are, and where we're going. And the process will continue to evolve based on input from our members, the sector, and other key partners, stakeholders, experts, but also keeping in mind the realities of the day. So we need to look at what's happening environmentally, politically, and fiscally for us as an organization. Our provincial board has agreed that activities outlined in this document will become a touchstone for the future strategic planning activities, which we'll be working on this summer. And ECEBC will continue to lead and adapt to meet the needs of the sector in the future in a way that makes sense in considering the work of other partners. So during the pressure testing process, it became clear that there were two delivering views, as I mentioned before. One, that maybe we're looking at our theory of change was too big for ECEBC, and the other that we need to state that the needs and proceed boldly if we're going to see any real change. So after presenting the work that we've done at a board meeting, the board of directors has chosen to embrace the latter. So they've chosen to take the broad, bold approach to the work that we're about to engage in or continue or develop and enhance. So we believe we need to pick up the pace to engage with the new and changing stakeholders and the public. And through this process to date, one of our major changes is that we recognize our pivotal role as a bridge builder in the sector. We can reach government and other stakeholders who are not yet involved at other tables. So arising from this work, ECEBC remains committed to the 10-a-day plan now that the election is over, and we will develop an implementation for after implementation of the 10-a-day plan. We will strengthen professionalism, the visibility of ECs, and raise awareness of the links between fair compensation and a high-quality environment for children. You will see in the slides ahead, we will outline the key activities, which are quite a few, but if you could bear with us, we really like to get your input on what we've identified to assist with our goals. And ECEBC will continue to detail the plans and resources required to carry out this important work. We invite you to provide input and stay involved, and really the success of doing this work requires all of us working together in both the traditional and new ways. And also what has really come up for us as an organization, that it will also require some changes and letting go of some of the pathways to move forward for the best impact. So that's something we're learning to look at and to do. Okay, Sean. So you can see here, this is ECEBC's draft theory of change, and although you can see here that there's cogs here. This is sort of our symbolization, and with the little gray arrows that shows that we need to have all of these things moving in tandem to make a really big impact. So the big red cog, if you can't read it, says by 2027, significantly improve the early care and learning opportunities of British Columbians. So you can see that that's actually a pretty big impact statement, but we feel as an organization that that really clearly identifies what we're hoping for British Columbia. In the three other ones, the green one is increase the standard of practice and professionalism. The orange one below says increase the number of ECs throughout BC, which I'll touch on, that we've actually changed that a little bit now, and support the 10-a-day childcare plan or continue to advance the 10-a-day childcare plan. So we feel that we need all of those things to ensure that that red impact statement happens. So ECEBC's roles and relationships we know are for the long term, and that we will continue to evolve and retain autonomy as well through this. And when you look at this graph or this visual piece, we also put in here how we're going to do that by leading, communicate, and engage our stakeholders. And for us, we took a lot of time to really look at who were we serving, where do we need to serve. And so you can see that the early childhood educators are in the center circle. Community, children, and families are in the outer circle, but are still a big, important part of why we do this work. And then other stakeholders remain on the outside. You can go, Sean, to the next one. Keep on going. Yeah, here she goes. You can just keep bringing them up, Sean. Might as well just put them all up there. It's a little bit easier than. And there's one more. There we go. So you can see here that it looks like a lot of work, and it really, really is. But these really are our key strategies and activities. The little black or the thin black lines identify how, although, that none of this work, like some of the work actually overlaps in a variety of different cogs, and you could probably put lines all through it everywhere that we're going, but just to indicate that this does happen. So the blue cog, the one that says support the 10-a-day childcare plan, really speaks to, we really wanted to bold that we will be advocating for fairly compensated early childhood educators, that we know that high quality environment is good for children and families, and we also support students. So we know that the key elements within the 10-a-day plan still remain true, that we need to have all of these elements to move forward for the sector and to increase the capacity of early childhood educators and also support the quality of programs that children and families have access to. The green, when you look at the green, programs, for example, to promote inclusiveness, additional needs we have to look at are with Indigenous and Aboriginal communities and refugees. The early years networks where we're sharing our expertise and growth. And you can see that ECEBC has looked at, right from the beginning, prepare a case for a Bachelor of Early Childhood Education ECE as the new standard, that we're encouraging, that we'll be able to help encourage course transfers within the post-secondary education, encourage all ECEs to attain Bachelor's of Early Childhood Education or a diploma, and encourage uncertified providers to become certified. And when we looked at this, we really know that some things are actually out of range, out of our hands. But what we can do is be the voice and be there to support those things to happen. Although it might be a different governing agency that actually has to make that policy decision and make that happen. So as we move forward, we look at how we engage early years networks, tables, and advisories, so that we also are promoting inclusion of children's voices and their families into the practice that we're doing, to be present and visible in key discussions. We know that that's very important throughout the province, as people make decisions all the time about our work, and we've seen that most recently, I think, with the recent the recent changes to the schools and more teachers coming back into the school system, and how some of those programs are being shut down now. And so we know that would never happen. That's not happening to Strong Start programs, which is good, but if they're childcare programs, they're being evicted now for the space, and so things like that. So just showing that value and worth is key for ECEBC to be there, to be in those key discussions and talk about how that impacts the work and the lives of children and families. As you move down to the orange section, ECEBC works in a variety of roles and locations serving children from ages 0 to 12. And it is our desire to become inclusive of and to engage all settings. So post-secondary education, consultation, and direct services. So we really want to break down this false divide between family child care, Strong Starts, after-school care, and it's also our desire to engage other non-EC early care and learning professionals and stakeholders, like supported child development and infant development programs and primary teachers from a variety of programs, and speak to and then to really see how this relates through all the cogs. So we have this opportunity to change this sort of false divide, and really think that's a big part of the work we need to look at. And then on the right-hand side, you will notice that we really are looking at building the capacity of the sector through our professionalism. So increase the training of ECs to support inclusiveness for early childhood educators and the children. Develop and implement programs for early childhood educators to use, so that when we do that, that the early childhood educators will be coached through that we will have check-ins, develop a reflective practice, so early child document. We're hoping to do that so that early childhood educators can actually look at their professional development from where they are and then start developing a plan of how they want to move forward with their own professional journey. We want to develop communities of practice or virtual communities of practice so that the sector itself feels more connected together and that they can continue the learning that they have developed. We are looking at developing a quality document. So when we talk about what is quality early care and learning in British Columbia, we can all be really clear about what that means, or maybe even what it doesn't mean. We want, and so we also know that one of the big pieces of work we want to engage in is securing a professional designation for early childhood educators. We've heard here in BC that over the years that we're hearing that, sorry, Sean, it's just stressing me out. It's all over the place. So that we know here in British Columbia and across Canada that we're not often seen as a professional, and we don't have the same professional designation. Language that is being changed from a license to practice to a certificate to practice is something that comes up for many of our members, as not feeling that it feels as a devaluing of our profession. And there's some steps and strategies that ECEBC wants to engage in to have that looked at and changed to really see early childhood educators as professionals in the province. Okay. And then, so just there are overarching activities that fit throughout. So expand awareness of ECEBC services for the public and for early childhood educators. We know that we have to get out there even more to show what we're doing and to connect with early childhood educators across this province so that they feel that they're being engaged. We are looking at exploring models to engage public and the family and using some of our research to be able to do that. So we're looking at ways that we engage and broaden stakeholders to be inclusive of all early care and learning services that align with key documents, with some of our key documents, which I will show you, and as well secure resources to support collective impact on organizations to take on the lead role. We also recognize and respect Aboriginal governments, and ECEBC will take the First Nations lens through all of our work. So we're looking at some that's still in concept and how we can have the best way to look at that. I think we're safe, Sean, to go to the next one. So as we mentioned that the stakeholders have a big impact on the work that we're doing, and we don't want to duplicate a lot of the work that we're doing. But other non-EC members fit in here, such as instructors at times and others who are associate members. But we support early care and learning professionals with the prime emphasis on ECEs. So you can see that there's a number of stakeholders that we will access, whether it's in government or content experts. So, we have many key partners like West Coast Childcare, Indigenous organizations like the BC Act, so the BC Aboriginal Child Care Society and the Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC. We have the EC articulation. We can access resources from the school system, our union partners, our school age association, and our the BC Family Childcare Association students, and then there's many more like our national partners. I'll go to the next slide. So one of the so we had 3 points that we wanted to look at, and the third one being is how are we going to measure the work that we do to have some really concrete measurements. So some of the ways that when we move into this, we'll be starting to look at is how many numbers of members actively engage in development of the new system. So when the 10-a-day plan is implemented, how many would be engaged in that? The percentage of ECs reporting improvement in wages and working conditions. So is our work actually supporting that movement that early childhood educators are having improved wages and working conditions throughout the province? I'm just going to let you put it all up, Sean, actually. You can see the red part, the big one is by 2027 that we can significantly improve from 20 to 35% the number of regulated licensed childcare spaces as being a key measurement, and that we can use the recent EDI, and we know that that's both provincially and nationally and internationally known way of measuring vulnerability rates within children, that we could see over that 10 years a decreased level of vulnerability in kindergarten. And we are hoping to increase the number of active ECEBC branches within this 10-year period by 30%. So there's 20 branches right now. We continue to grow and find strategies to support the branches to be healthy and active within their own communities. And then in the green area, we're looking at membership and member retention rate. So we can measure how many education seats or professional development seats are sold, and is that a connection to a communities of practice? How are our members, how are they staying connected in between these professional development opportunities? We will continue to measure the number of bursaries and grants that are awarded through the work that we're doing. And oh, look at that, it has the same thing said twice on here. So education seats sold is the same as above, so I know I can remove that piece. Okay, Sean. And you can see that there's other measurements as well. So we are now developing a second phase of our leadership program that will be going out and disseminated out into community. And so we can measure more of that, those stories that early childhood educators will report back, having the tools and the supports they need to feel confident within their leadership capacity within their community. Increase application of culturally competent and inclusive practices. We'll still obviously keep moving forward on the plan, and what we need to do when the plan is implemented and what do we do before it's implemented will really impact our measurements as well. And then we're also looking at ways, how do we engage our members and other people in the sector to become part of ECEBC through a number of other contacts and systems. And then hopefully that will help us increase our donations, which will help us do more work out in the province and then also increase our website traffic. So we developed this membership plan, which is really a big piece of the work within this strategy. So increase business partnerships is another strategy that we're looking at. Membership, member retention rates, how do we keep members once they become part of ECEBC, and how do we show the relationship to what our members are saying and the work that we're doing and how that relates not only here in the Lower Mainland but out at a broader level. Having student memberships converted to being full members, increase the member satisfaction through member benefits and other activities. We want to increase student memberships using volunteer hours. We are having a number of volunteers come in and be part and more engaged within the organization so that they feel that they're part of the work that we're doing and really see what actually happens here. We are really looking at social media engagement and boosting those rates because we really know that's the way a lot of people connect these days. And then looking at branch education activities. So how do we engage our branch and how do they feel connected and how do they share information of the work that's actually happening in local communities. So we went through, as I mentioned before, a pressure testing process. So what we did is we went through this exact same presentation, looking at a variety of different, going through this and then asking people like yourself, what do you think about what we're presenting here? So we're asking, will our strategies or activities lead to the desired outcome? Is anything missing? Are these activities necessary and sufficient activities? Other stakeholders will, so like I said, we brought this out so we know that other stakeholders will answer similar and different questions. And so we did look through this through 3 different areas, and you can go to the next one, Sean, is the research. So we asked key people in the research department that do research is a variety of questions that are similar, but some a bit different. You can go to the next one. And then this one is the one that I want to share with you most specifically. So if you can think about what's being presented tonight, is our theory of change clear? Do you support our theory of change? In the theory of change, does ECEBC's role make sense when considering other organizations and their activities? And how does ECEBC's theory of change fit with the work your organization or what you're doing? And how do you feel? How does our work on Indigenous perspectives our responsibility? So I'm going to open up the floor now and say thank you for spending that much time just listening to me talk. It's kind of odd not to have any feedback while you're talking or anybody's face to look at. But we're really, really interested in your input and your thoughts around our work. And so maybe I'll get Sean to go back to the last one so the questions are up for people to see. And if you notice there's a little tiny bar on the side of this webinar, and there's a little hand. And if you have a comment or a question, if you press that, then Sean could ask you directly, we'll ask you to speak on that. Are you there, Sean?
Yes, I am. I'm just waiting for a hand. Okay. Anybody? Let's see. Paula. Are you there, Paula? You've got yourself on self-mute.
Oh, there we go. Hi.
There you are.
Sorry, double hit it.
No problem.
The last question about the Indigenous perspectives, our responsibility, I would have to say yes. Recently, I volunteered at the CTU Expo, which is Community to University Expo, held at SFU. And I was involved in one of the conversations. And so they're actually looking for support and, I guess, joint responsibility for how to support children, and not just their children, but our children as a community. So yes, I would say that our work is very, very, very much inclusive. And our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Hi, Janice.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you, first of all, for the presentation. I felt myself feeling really excited. I've been in this field for over 20 years, so I'm always excited to hear about a perspective change or a bit of a change in direction, a strategic plan. And it's clear to me the theory of change as I look through it. I'd have to read through it again. But I'm somebody of action. So what you're proposing, which is really good when you're looking at sort of like professionalism and standards of practice, and also just making sure that we are, as a profession, seen as being a real part of society. I'm just wondering what the steps are to start, like how can we, as early childhood educators, what can we do, in the forefront to actually start helping and supporting?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Sorry, I was on mute there as I'm talking away. But so Emily here again, and honestly, that just makes me so excited that when I hear early childhood educators going, what can we do to help support that? Because I think, honestly, that is the biggest impact we're going to have, is having the support of early childhood educators, and that's where we're seeing the most change, is when it comes at a community level for engagement. And I think as we look at looking through the Aboriginal lens, which we feel is very important as living in the province that we do, we also need to look at that exact lens. How do we engage early childhood educators in this province? And I have to say that it was probably lacking in a lot of ways. Like, it seemed really daunting, and so when we did engage, it was at a really, I don't want to say a superficial level, but I think that we can start building deeper levels of that engagement, and that's what we're already starting to see a huge change. So, we can still do the things like the surveys and the calls and all those things, but when people come in and be part of a community and a group where we're actually doing some real tangible work, I think that's what's going to make a big change for our organization and then for the sector as well. So maybe I don't, definitely we don't have details on this is the task list, but I think that lens has to be taken over all the activities that we're doing, is like, how do we engage our members to feel connected, and vice versa, like, how do we feel supported that we're doing the right thing, and can they take this information and can it go back and forth, and how does those things become strengthened for the sector. I don't know if Carla or Shar have anything to add to that. Well, I guess Shar is actually gone, so it would be you, Carla.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I'm just, when I heard that that you said that, I was almost jumping for joy. I just think that's just going to really support and keep us focused on the work that we're going to move ahead with. And like you said, Emily, in regards to the First Nations content and to the work that should be embedded in our best practice too, it's so important that we include that, to be inclusive of that in our practice. And I think you really nailed it on the head. Hearing someone who's really engaged and really supportive to how do we get this going, how can we support this, that's really going to it keeps us motivated to keep moving forward.
And to further to Carla, what she has said, and to your question, Janice, like, what can we do to help support and move this forward? We already have key strategies about how we can start this ongoing engagement. And really, since we started doing this process, and going out and doing this pressure testing and then bringing it out at AGM and now with this membership call, we have really seen so many people saying, how can I be involved? How can I add my input? So we're looking at those strategies. How do we continue to engage and maintain those relationships and that excitement in being involved?
Okay, I have a question and comment from Cindy. Cindy wrote, I recognize there will be lots of concerns and questions around educational requirements. How would this be managed when we already have concerns around a lower number of students entering this field, and also the attitudes of those who have been in the field for so many years being required to get more education? Would there be a grandfathering of ECE credentials for those long-time ECEs? And she also wrote, yes to all, clear makes sense, and yes to the Indigenous perspective is our responsibility. So her main question is around the education.
Okay, I think I can answer most of this. So if I miss parts of those questions, Sean, you'll have to remind me. But definitely we do have a grandfathering or grandmothering clause built into the 10-a-day plan. So one of the elements is that, you know, obviously experience and education all have to be part of that. And we know that without having a fairly compensated workforce, we can't ask people to go back to, like, it's really difficult to go back to school for a variety of reasons, mainly financially. So we know that that's a piece. So even within the 10-day plan, just like how these cogs are working in the development of this plan, we need all of those elements to be working at the same time. We need to increase the educational capacity, because we also know quality is a big issue within the province. And the only way we're going to have a highly compensated, highly valued and respected workforce is going to be based, as research has said, this is based on our education. So that's why we know, that's why this is the direction for ECEBC, is to look forward to that. But we also know it's going to take time to go there. So if you're an early childhood educator today, you will continue to be an early childhood educator tomorrow. So there would not be that push. So many, you know, people might, you know, they'll retire out of that. There's also some funding within the costing model of the plan to support people that are working within the sector to move to a higher standard of education. So there's a bunch of different ways that we're looking at addressing the education piece, and especially for people. So we understand that it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it will probably take a generation, just much like other sectors have moved forward, like such as nursing and even teachers themselves, where they had a one-year practicum or a one-year certificate and have moved to a much higher standard of education. And that's reflective of how they're viewed within society around their wages and compensation and value within the workforce.
And actually that question came from Laura Q. So I'm sorry.
Sorry, Laura.
The Dropbox was funny. Anyways, Leola, or is it Sylvie that has their hand up?
I had it up. It was Sylvie.
Hi, Sylvie.
I put it back down, but how we can move forward is just have a big voice and just believe in ourselves, and every community will count, and keep on going forward. And it sounds like good strategic changes, and I'm all for it. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Sylvie. And Kim, did you have a question?
Hi, I'm typing away here. I have a lot in my head right now, and you guys carry on.
Okay. There also will be opportunities to, if things come up for people to throughout this process, that you can email in responses as well to Sean, and we're collecting those as well. So I know that maybe even afterwards you might have, oh, I wish I would have said this, or I was thinking about this. Did they address that? So we're really interested in getting more feedback.
Okay, Leola wrote, she had to leave, but she wrote the following comments. I find the theory of change so exciting. It goes hand in hand with the 10-a-day plan and shows so well how everything is related for change to strengthen our professionalism. Our branch in Vernon has made a commitment to promote the importance of ECEBC and encouraging educators in the sector. Okay, does anyone else have a question or a comment?
I did, if I could. It's Paula.
Okay, please go for it, Paula.
Okay. First of all, I'm really excited to be a part of this call. A little bit about my history is that I've been in the childcare field for about 25 years, but from Ontario. And I moved here, it'll be just over 5 years, to Surrey. And something that I'm extremely passionate about and I love hearing so much is about the quality and best practice, and then following through with how to best support community needs. And one thing that I've really observed since stepping into more of a workshop host and leader is that there's a real disconnect from the framework and how to monitor the implementation of something. And then how Fraser Health, you know, it's not mandated that the ELF is implemented. So for me, I guess the quality piece, and I love the drive and passion that I'm hearing from you, is how are we going to support the continual momentum of quality early childhood education. And I love the professional development connection, because when you motivate people to see their potential and see their professional growth, perhaps you can link the two. And I would just ask the group to consider how are we going to support quality? What does that look like? And are there going to be things that are mandated? With so many for-profit centers and just interacting and engaging with people here, are there going to be more non-for-profit? Is that something that we're looking at advocating for along with the $10 a day? Those are some really key things, and again, I'm super excited. I love the energy from the group, and I'm really grateful to be part of this session. Thank you.
Those are really good pieces, and actually I think we have addressed them, but it's good to keep them at the forefront. So the ways that we have addressed them is when we start looking, look at what's happened in the province. When we know that we want to have more accountability measures for how early care and learning is playing out. So really looking at that quality piece. So that's why we want to develop a quality document, because we talk about quality all the time, but really what does that mean, right? What does that mean for us as a sector? And also even within the 10-a-day plan, within the accountability, there are 5 accountability measures. And for me as an educator, the most important one is the 5th one, that all programs will need to align themselves with the early learning framework. So we know there's the one from the Ministry of Education, and we also know that there's the framework from our Indigenous partners as well. So, and we know that there's other ones that are being created, and they'll change through time, but really, that really does speak to the image of the child, the image of the teacher, the environment impact, all of the things that we hold true to that holistic approach to early care and learning. And so we felt that really spoke really beautifully, that document really speaks beautifully to the work of that early childhood educators could do. And if we can align and that be a requirement, that could still allow for flexibility to have individual programs remain individual, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like parents will choose and families will choose. Communities know what they need and what they like. So if you want to have a Reggio-inspired or a emergent curriculum or whatever you want to call the flavor of the day, that document will guide us no matter what kind of program that you're running. But that will then, so we're not only looking at minimum standards, and we don't want to throw those away either, because we know that does respond to health and safety issues for children, and we need those, but they are a minimum standard, and we want to elevate the quality of our practice so that children and families are receiving the best possible opportunities, and that early childhood educators can feel really proud about the programs that they're working in and how they're servicing. We are, you talked about the big box corporate childcare, so this is not, not the individual standalones. We know people have really tried hard to address a childcare crisis in BC, but ECEBC has been open to say that we do not support that model of providing childcare in this province, because we know that just only increases the cost for families. We know that doesn't support early childhood educators. At the same time, we support every early childhood educator. So if they're working in those programs, we're support for them individually, but we do not support that concept as a model. And so that's something that we will continue to talk about with government and tell them and voice our concerns and our opinions on that. So definitely that's a big piece of work that we have to continue to move forward with. I can't remember, did I touch on all the pieces you brought up? I hope.
Yes, thank you. That was very great. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, I have a question from Cindy, if we're ready to move forward. How can ECEBC build opportunities for communities of practice into every professional development event? Offering GoToWebinars as a platform for members to carry on the connection they make and the relationships developed? And that was in a question. That was a question.
Yeah, well, we're still trying to figure that out. Like, we know, like, how, we know, like, definitely through our leadership program, where there were these definite communities that were developed, and we've seen that move on into other areas with other partnerships and other programs that we offered. So we just need to really look at what the resources are that we need to do that, because I think it really stems from last year. We had the conference had the whole premise about the ripple effect of what we do and how do we do that. And we all know that when we take something really inspiring, it's really hard to contain that momentum and that connection, and how do we continue to learn? And I think it was brought up around the early learning framework as a prime example. And if we could find ways to embed this community as a practice, that will give us an opportunity to become a really rich and resource sector. We know that pockets throughout the province, this is already happening. Our partner at West Coast, they have a program that's happening, so we're going to be looking to them for their input of what's positive about that. And also in Victoria, there's a group there, and there's actually some training on that coming up at the end of the month. I don't know if anybody's on the phone that's close to that, because I would love to be able to get some people there to see what they're talking about, and we just need to learn and then start developing that. And I definitely think, like, doing these online webinars, although it's not ideal for, I still think face-to-face is ideal, but it does give us another level of connectiveness. And so we are going to do our best. We're actually starting with our Let's Talk program, our child sexual abuse program, because that's where we're finding a lot of people drop off, is after they take the training. It's really hard to stay grounded with that, because the subject matter is so sensitive. So we're starting with that as a possibility of starting that communities of practice, as well as ECEBC is just in the beginning stages. We have developing within our leadership modules. We're developing leadership modules that will be able to go out in communities and then also develop communities of practice as ongoing through that. So we're looking right now at how we can do that, but how can we expand that as well into future years.
And Cindy added to that another type of online platform, real-time or anytime, ongoing discussions. The Pro-D workshops become the invitation to carry on the discussions.
Exactly. And we're also redoing our website, and one of the key factors in that website is actually having a members only page, so that only the members could go to, and how we could start discussions even on an online, you know, even if it's like sending messages back and forth. And I really think that if that becomes successful, we can pull key topics out, and then we can explore those in a deeper, impactful way.
Great. I have another question here from Kim. Let me just find it here. Oh, okay. Sorry, the screen keeps jumping a bit. Curious to know about social media intents. We, the public, we need the public to understand viscerally how adverse childhood events physically change the brain and how early intervention is the best way to minimize. Sorry, it keeps jumping. Okay, sorry about that. We need the public to understand viscerally how adverse childhood events physically change the brain and how early intervention is the best way to minimize these effects. Perhaps free public TV ads, a well-written, well-produced video which goes viral. Any thoughts on that?
I think those are absolutely fabulous strategy. Like we're looking at the whole communication and public awareness strategy. So I think those are really great ideas to explore and see what's possible.
Let's see. Kim, did you have your hand up again?
No, but thank you for addressing that. That's great.
Okay.
I'm pleased to know that you know that you're looking at Sorry, it's the end of the day here. That you're looking into public education and that sort of thing.
Okay. And we have a final comment from Cindy. She says, thank you. These webinars are a great addition to what ECEBC offers. And I think that's everyone's questions. No hands are up and the question box is empty.
No, I really, we will, and we'll ensure that that everybody remains connected, because we're just really at the beginning of this, and obviously we need some tweakings around our slideshows and stuff like this, but it just really solidifies the direction, and we're excited too about this work. So really pleased, and we're even excited about doing these webinars when all of these technical things are new for us too, and we're learning as well. So we really are thankful that everybody continues to come on, and it's getting better and better every time. And as well as if you have any suggestions on topics that you want to talk about coming up in the future, it's been really, really positive. Like we have had, like it's really a nice way for us to talk about the work of ECEBC, and we've also had the opportunities to do some other professional development of concerns, you know, whether it's a concern or a developmental approach or something that's really impacting your day-to-day practice, that we can look for experts or have a discussion. And so we're really looking for that. So if you can think of anything that's really speaking to you, we'd like to hear from you and then support that to happen through our membership calls.
Definitely, because these calls are for you guys. And yeah, just send in your thoughts and ideas of what you'd like. Okay, any last thoughts or comments before we go for the evening?
So again, thank you so much for tonight, and we'll definitely be sending out professional development certificates for this presentation, so a little bit of Pro-D as well. And thank you again for all your input.
Thank you, everybody.